In this vlog, I will explore the extent to which the HR lifecycle assists managers in effectively managing their employees. I will also evaluate the benefits of workplace mentoring while considering comparable facilitation models. Finally, I will discuss the critical role of ethical decision-making within the HR profession. These discussions will be framed in relation to 3 key learning outcomes: the application of systematic thinking models to people management, the critical use of facilitation and mentoring frameworks, and the influences of ethics and values on decision-making processes. To begin, the HR lifecycle provides a structured framework for managing employees from the point of recruitment through to exit. This lifecycle includes stages such as attraction, selection, onboarding, development, retention, and exit. Systematic thinking models such as the McKinsey 7S framework or Ulrich HR models can be integrated into this lifecycle to ensure coherence between strategic goals and people practices. By systematically aligning each stage of the lifecycle with organisational objectives, managers are better equipped to make informed, strategic decisions about employee engagement, development and performance. However, it's important to critically assess whether these models account for the complexity of individual behaviour and evolving workforce dynamics, especially in diverse and rapidly changing environments. Next, we will turn to mentoring as a facilitation model. Mentoring, when implemented effectively, can lead to increased employee engagement, career development and knowledge transfer. It supports a culture of continuous learning and often enhances leadership pipelines. Beyond mentoring, facilitation models such as coaching, peer learning and action learning sets also play crucial roles in developing human capital. Each model brings unique benefits depending on the organisational context and the specific challenges being addressed. A critical awareness of these models allow HR practitioners and line managers to tailor interventions to the needs of the individual and the teams, fostering both performance and well-being. Finally, ethical decision-making is an essential competency for HR practitioners. The HR function often operates at the intersection of business strategy and employee advocacy. Ethical dilemmas can rise in areas such as performance management, diversity and inclusion, or organisational structuring. Employee ethical frameworks such as deontology, consequentialism, or virtual ethics enables practitioners to navigate complex decisions with integrity. Moreover, awareness of differing mindsets and values, both internally and externally, supports more inclusive and transparent decision-making. In today's diverse and globalised workforce, this is not only a moral imperative, but a strategic one. In conclusion, by adopting models of systematic thinking, embracing diverse facilitation approaches like mentoring and committing to ethical principles, HR practitioners and managers can significantly enhance their people management practices. These tools not only contribute to organisational success, but also help create more resilient, ethical and engaged workforces. The HR lifecycle refers to a theoretical model which maps the key stages of an employee's journey within an organisation, typically comprising of recruitment, onboarding, development, performance management, retention and exit. For managers, this life cycle provides a structure, repeatable framework to guide decision-making. By applying systematic thinking, which Senge 1990 defines as the ability to understand interrelated elements within complex systems, managers can use the HR life cycle not just as a linear sequence of tasks, but as an interconnected process where decisions at one stage impact outcomes at another. For instance, an effective onboarding process supported by well-structured induction programs directly influences employee engagement and retention. Recognising these connections is central to building a people management strategy that's both responsive and sustainable. The life cycle also aligns with systems models of HRM, particularly the Harvard model, which supports for viewing HR processes as part of a wider socio-technological system involving stakeholders, situational factors and long-term outcomes. Managers who adopt this mindset can enhance the integration of HR practices into business strategy, policies and culture. Each stage of the HR lifecycle offers specific tools for managerial effectiveness, such as recruitment and selection, which is a structured recruitment process guided by job analysis, competency models, which helps managers attract the right candidates and reduce early attrition. Evidence suggests that consistent hiring processes increase organisational fit and performance. Within the onboarding process, research by Clean and Poll in 2012 highlights that effective onboarding, when managed systematically, enhances employee clarity, confidence and connection. Managers who engage with active onboarding are more likely to foster early performance and social integration. During performance management and development, through the life cycle lens, managers can schedule regular feedback, learning plans, and career development initiatives. According to Gaurav Vanatel 2016, integrating employee development into performance management increases engagement and supports succession planning. Whilst looking at retention and exit, by understanding the drivers of turnover, and especially voluntary turnover, this enables managers to proactively address dissatisfaction. Homatel, using data to inform organisational learning, similarly strategic retention efforts such as recognition, flexible working or career pathways can be mapped against life cycle stages for proactive action. Therefore, the HR life cycle facilitates structured thinking, consistency in employee experience and alignment with broader organisational goals, which are all key benefits for managers. Despite its value, the HR life cycle is not without criticism. One key limitation is that it assumes a linear, stable employment relationship, which may not reflect the reality of contemporary work environments. The rise of variable careers means that employees often shift roles, organisations, or even industries more frequently and independently. As a result, life cycle models can struggle to accommodate flexible and hybrid working patterns. Furthermore, life cycle frameworks risk becoming overly prescriptive if applied rigidly. This can lead to a tick box approach by people management, undermining the need for adaptability, creativity, and contextual awareness. As Ulrich et al. 2015 argues, HR processes should be agile and integrated, not isolated and fixed into stages. To counter this, systematic thinking should be dynamic and adaptive, with managers encouraged to use the life cycle as a flexible tool rather than a fixed formula. This aligns with the cybernetic model of organisational control, which emphasises feedback loops, learning, and system-wide responsiveness. A significant element to this approach is to focus on the employee experience and foster a continuous improvement mindset. This feedback provides a critical input into systems thinking, as it allows managers to detect emergent patterns, adjust interventions, and better align employee needs with the organisational objective. The HR lifecycle, when embedded in feedback-driven culture, supports adaptive management that evolves in responses to real-time data and changing business conditions. Moreover, viewing the HR lifecycle through the lens of systematic thinking allows managers to perceive the organisation as an interconnected set of processes rather than as separate activities. As argued by Seng in the fifth discipline, systems thinking helps leaders recognise the impact of decisions across the functions. For instance, poor decision-making in the recruitment or onboarding process can ripple through to the organisation, which will manifest later as disengagement or attrition during the retention phase. Strategically aligning the HR life cycle's activities with frameworks such as the human capital value chain enables a more outcome-orientated approach. This model positions each stage of the HR life cycle as a driver, linking employee performance to broader organisational outcomes. Managers who adopt systematic approaches are better equipped to anticipate workforce challenges and manage the need of the organisation. In order to fully leverage the HR life cycle, managers must integrate it into the broader strategic and cultural goals. This involves aligning life cycle practices with organisational values and missions, using data and analytics to identify patterns and improve decision-making at each stage, and encouraging employees to voice and feedback throughout the life cycle to enhance engagement and responsiveness. Incorporating employee feedback is essential, not only for improving specific HR interventions, but for fostering a culture of trust and psychological safety, factors linked to performance and innovation. When feedback loops are structured into each phase of the life cycle, such as post-onboarding surveys or exit interviews, these provide critical data that helps managers refine practices in real time. This reflects systems thinking in action, seeing the life cycle not as an isolated touch point, but as continuous, independent cycles where outputs from one phase inform inputs to the next. A systematic approach to the HR life cycle also encourages the application of diagnostic and predictive analytics. For instance, data on time to productivity after onboarding can help managers to assess the effectiveness of training programs or identify potential mismatches in job role alignments. Systematic thinking helps managers contextualise this feedback within a larger network of people management outcomes. For example, feedback gathered during the exit interview stage may uncover previously unnoticed gaps in the onboarding or career development, revealing interconnected weaknesses across the life cycle. Prucell and Hutchinson 2007 emphasises the importance of empowering line managers to act as strategic enablers, capable of interpreting those patterns to drive performance. This aligns with systematic thinking principles where the manager does not treat the individual HR functions as isolated events, but as elements within a larger adaptive system. Moreover, integrating life cycle thinking into strategic decision making allows for predictive modelling and scenario planning, helping managers to anticipate challenges before they escalate. As highlighted by Becker and Husler in 2006, human capital matrix can be systematically analysed to reveal how practices such as recruitment, quality or training, investment correlation with business performance. In this way, the HR lifecycle becomes not only a framework for people management, but a diagnostic tool that also informs proactive evidence-based strategy. Additionally, the integration of the lifecycle thinking with models such as the Human Capital Framework or Ulrich HR Business Partner Model enables managers to take a far more productive and predictive stance in people management. These models encourage a systems-orientated perspective, where HR practices are independent and must be aligned with long-term business strategies. For instance, a data-informed analysis of onboarding effectiveness might reveal links to employee retention. Overall, the HR lifecycle is a highly valuable tool for managers, particularly when integrated with models of systematic thinking. Rather than managing each HR activity as an isolated event, the lifecycle framework allows for a dynamic, interactive or interconnected approach. This aligns closely with the principle of high-performance strategic integration and coherence among HR practices. In conclusion, the HR lifecycle significantly helps managers manage their employees, but its effectiveness is maximised when combined with a systems thinking approach. By recognising the independence of recruitment, onboarding, development, retention, and exit practices, managers are better positioned to make informed, strategic decisions that benefit both the employee and the organisation. The life cycle not only provides a roadmap, but also encourages reflective and adaptive management practices, thereby enhancing organisational resilience and performance. Let's move on to evaluate the benefits of adopting mentoring in the workplace. In its basic form, mentoring involves a more experienced individual supporting the development of someone less experienced. One of the foundational thinkers here is Cram 1985, who defined mentoring as a career and psychological support mechanism that enables an apprentice to grow personally and professionally. Cram's development model highlights two core functions: the career function, which is sponsorship, coaching and exposure, and the psychological function, which is role modelling, acceptance and counselling. In organisational practice, mentoring supports succession planning, diversity initiatives and leadership development. It's also strongly linked with the employee retention and engagement. A meta-analysis by Allen et al. 2004 found that mentored employees had significantly higher job satisfaction, organisational commitment and career outcomes. From a HR perspective, mentoring offers a low-cost, high-impact tool for knowledge transfer, especially in a flattered or matrix structure where formal hierarchies are less emphasised. However, mentoring is not a universal solution. A number of critiques are worth considering. First, mentoring relationships can unintentionally reinforce bias and exclusion, particularly where informal mentoring dominates and access to is unequally distributed. Research suggests that women and minority employees are often under-mentored and over-managed. Second, it can create a power dynamic, dependency or inhibit honest dialogue, especially when the mentoree or the mentor has direct authority over the mentoree's career path. Ulrich 2014 further argues that without clear objectives and structured oversight, mentoring can be poorly implemented, leading to inconsistent outcomes. In response, many organisations now turn to a formal mentoring scheme, guided by learning objectives, feedback loops and even reverse mentoring models to increase mutual learning and equality. In addition to mentoring, there are a number of other facilitation models which are relevant to the HR practice. For example, coaching. Unlike mentoring, coaching is often short-term, goal-focused and performance-driven. According to Whitmore 2009, coaching is unlocking a person's potential to maximise their own performance. It's non-directive and typically uses techniques from humanistic psychology and transformational learning theory. Coaching is especially valuable in performance management, leader transitions and behavioural change. Many organisations now certify internal coaches or contract external professionals to support high potential talent. Another facilitation model to consider is peer learning and action learning sets. Inspired by Revens in 1982, action learning sets bring small groups together to solve real problems through structured questioning and reflection. This model promotes collaborative learning, psychological safety and systems thinking, making it well suited to developing coaching leadership and tackling complex challenges. From a HR standpoint, this model supports the accessibility of knowledge and aligns well with agile and learning-orientated cultures. Additionally, there are also consultation and facilitation interventions. In a more complex or conflict-prone scenarios, structured consultation models can be effective. One example is Heron's 2001 six-category intervention framework, which helps practitioners distinguish between authoritative, facilitative, and catalytic models of interaction. This model is particularly relevant in HR contexts like employee relations, change management, and organisational development, where practitioners must balance empathy, direction, and accountability. In theory, mentoring has the ability to thrive in the right organisation. There are a number of ways in which these approaches can be applied to practice. For example, onboarding and integration. Mentoring works well for cultural onboarding and early socialisation into the department. By pairing this with peer learning groups and using learning cohorts, this can increase cross-functional connection throughout the organisation and reduce isolation, creating ecosystems within as opposed to individual teams without groups. Additionally, underperformance can be managed through developmental coaching. Rather than defaulting to performance management processes, coaching can identify internal blockers, skill gaps, or motivational issues. If performance issues are widespread, consultation frameworks might uncover structural or cultural causes, avoiding the loss of talent due to disengaged or potential internal barriers. Furthermore, a blended model of leadership development by deploying senior leaders as mentors provided targeted coaching on emotional intelligence and decision-making, and convene action learning sets for strategic problem solving. This approach develops both individual capacity and collective capacity. These aren't isolated situations, they're part of a systematic learning architecture that HR can embed across the employee life cycle. In summary, mentoring remains a vital part of HR developmental toolkit, especially when combined with coaching, peer learning, and consultation models. The key is being intentional, designing these interventions with clear goals, theoretically underpinning and structured equality. HR's role is evolving, from enforcers of policy to facilitators to transformation. And to do this well, we need to understand the differences between mentoring, coaching, and facilitation, and deploy the thoughtfully backed by evidence and aligned with organisational strategy. Moving on to our final question, why should HR practitioners adopt ethical decision making? Now more than ever, HR is not just about managing people, it's about shaping the moral core of our organisation. In this final section, the discussion will encompass the importance of ethics in HR, critically appraising how ethical principles, diverse mindsets, and conflicting values influence the decisions we make, both internally and externally. Whether you're leading transformation, managing workforce risk, or advising the executive board, ethics is the thread that runs throughout all effective, sustainable HR practice. Ethical decision making is not just about doing the right thing, it's a general sense. For HR, it's about maintaining trust, supporting legal and moral compliance, and navigating the complex situations while remaining transparent. According to the CIPD Profession Map 2021, ethical practice is a core behaviour that's expected at all levels of the profession, but putting that into action requires more than just good intentions. It means aligning our decisions with professional standards, corporate values, and the broader societal expectations. In practice, this includes everything from handling employee grievances with fairness to developing fair reward structures and ensuring inclusive recruitment processes. However, as with everything, there are challenges to face. HR often sits at a crossroads of competing interests. As HR professionals, we have to manage tensions between commercial goals, employee well-being, and legal compliance, and sometimes even our own moral compass. That's well-structured ethical frameworks and a strong understanding of values and mindsets become essential toolkits. There are a number of ethical theories which can guide the approach of organisations. Originating from the work of Kant's 1785, deontology is a duty-based ethics theory which suggests that ethical decisions should be guided by principles and duties, regardless of the consequences. In HR, this might be evidenced as a non-negotiable commitment to confidentiality, data protection, or equal treatment, even when pressured, for example, by senior management to kind of bend the rules. Deontological ethics helps create consistency and fairness, which is crucial for psychological safety in the workplace. Another theory is around outcome-based ethics, utilitarianism. This is often attributed to Bentham and John Stuart Mills, which argues that the right decision is the one that creates the greatest good for the greatest number. For example, within HR, this may come into play during restructures or redundancies. While such decisions impact individuals negatively, and we all struggle with that, the broader business outcomes such as survival and future job security may have to be prioritised. Utilitarianism invites us to look at the long-term systematic impact of our actions. And finally, virtue ethics, which is based around our character. This approach focuses on the moral character of the decision maker. It's about nurturing qualities like fairness, integrity, and courage. In HR, this could mean standing firm on ethical hiring practices or calling out inappropriate conduct. Virtue ethics reinforces the idea that how we show up as professionals matter, especially in the moments of ambiguity. In practice, ethical HR decision-making often bends all three perspectives: respecting duties, weighing outcomes, and upholding moral integrity. Of course, our ethical decisions are also shaped by values and mindsets, both our own and of others. Hofstede's cultural dimension theory highlights how different cultures globally prioritise different values. For example, organisations in individualistic cultures may value autonomy and performance matrix, whilst collectivist cultures may prioritise harmony and long-term loyalty. These cultural differences influence how HR professionals approach conflict, feedback, and leadership development. When designing global HR policies and managing international teams, being sensitive to the different cultural mindsets that you have within one global organisation is vital to making ethical and inclusive decisions. Even within an organisation, different departments or management teams may operate from opposing perspectives. For example, in finance team, they may focus on cost efficiency, whilst HR may champion employee development. Without an organisational approach to ethical values, these mindsets can lead to friction. Skeen's model of organisational culture 2010 suggests that behaviours are shaped by underlying assumptions. HR role is to uncover these assumptions and, where needed, challenge them to promote ethical alignment. Finally, our personal ethics also play a role. While professional standards aim to ensure consistency, HR practitioners inevitably bring their own values into the workplace. This is why reflective practice through supervision, peer discussions, or even coaching is essential for identifying biases and sharpening our ethical perspective. In essence, the more we understand our values, and those of others, the more ethically intelligent our decisions become. Another factor to consider is how ethical thinking influences both internal and external HR decisions. For example, internally, ethical decisions might involve navigating workplace investigations with fairness, designing reward systems that are unbiased and transparent, and managing performance objectively, avoiding favouritism or unconscious bias. For example, when determining promotions, HR must balance merit, representation, and organisational needs. Applying procedural justice theory, ethical HR practitioners ensure that decision-making processes are fair and not just outcomes. Externally, however, HR ethics influences can be slightly different. This may look like employee branding, such as how authentically we communicate values, corporate structure responsibility, how we treat our supply chain workers, for instance, or public health and sustainability, such as what our ethical stances are on hybrid working or climate impact. A recent CIPD survey in 2023 found that 71% of employees believe their organisation's external values should align with internal behaviours. This shows how deeply ethics connects with reputation, recruitment and retention. Moreover, in a transparent digital age, all internal decisions are very fast becoming public ones. As we conclude this discussion, it's important to reflect on how each of these themes explored, namely the HR lifecycle, facilitation models such as mentoring and ethical decision-making, all contribute holistically to effective people management in modern organisations. First, the HR lifecycle remains a foundational framework for structuring how organisations engage with their workforce from recruitment through to exit. When approached through models of systematic thinking, it becomes not just a process map, but a strategic tool. Frameworks such as Ulrich HR model and the McKinsey 7S provide managers with a lens through which they can align HR practices and organisational goals, ensuring that each stage of the employee journey contributes meaningfully to both performance and employee satisfaction. Yet we must acknowledge that no model is universally applicable. Contextual awareness and adaptability are essential for responding to the nuanced needs of different employee groups and organisational cultures. Secondly, the benefits of mentoring in the workplace are increasingly well documented. As a facilitation model, mentoring offers rational and development support that enhances both individual capacity and organisational cohesion. It promotes learning, fosters inclusion, and prepares future leaders. Importantly, mentoring should not be seen as in isolation. Alternative models such as coaching, peer learning groups, and active learning sets each offer their own strengths. By maintaining a critical awareness of these varied approaches, HR practitioners and line managers can apply the most appropriate model to a given context, enhancing the engagement and organisational learning. Finally, the importance of ethical decision-making in HR cannot be overstated. As organisations face growing scrutiny around social responsibilities, fairness and transparency, HR professionals are often called upon to act as ethical stewards. Ethical frameworks support sound decision-making when faced with competing interests, uncertainty or organisational pressures. Furthermore, awareness of differing values and mindsets, whether generational, cultural or ideological, enables a more empathetic, inclusive outcomes. This is not only a matter of professional integrity, but is also increasingly seen as a driver of organisational trust and long-term sustainability. Bringing these elements together, we can see how models of systematic thinking, facilitation and ethics interconnect. They each serve to guide HR practitioners and managers in making more informed, inclusive and effective people management decisions. In a climate of rapid organisational change, where agility, diversity and purpose are paramount, these tools provide a strong foundation for strategic HR practices. In closing, effective people management today requires more than procedural knowledge. It demands reflective practice, ethical clarity and commitment to development at both the individual and organisational level. By integrating the HR lifecycle, mentoring and facilitation models and principled decision making, HR professionals are better equipped to contribute meaningfully to both employee wellbeing and business success. Thank you.